Welcome everybody, my name's Scott Hubbard from Sparx Systems, and today I'm pleased to introduce Enterprise Architect 15.1 to our customers. It's really great to talk to you today. I plan on providing a high-level overview of some of the features from our latest release, which came out this week. All registered users can immediately download Enterprise Architect 15.1 and start using it today. So the agenda for today's session, I'm going to highlight some key features from the product release. I'm going to then switch to the Enterprise Architect 15.1 product demonstrations and show Enterprise Architect in action. And at the end of the session, we're going to take some questions from the audience. And as always, feel free to email a webinar at sparxsystems.com with any feedback for some future webinars. So we're going to look at some of the visualize your world, so some of the features around the diagramming, visualization. I'm going to show you how to pin models to the start menu. We're going to look at some features around previewing child diagrams without losing focus on what you're working on. I'm going to show you how to create some all new diagram layers in Enterprise Architect 15.1. Look at visible freeze relationships. I'm going to look at some new technology such as model-based business vocabulary. So creating some new glossary terms. Going to look at the all new Cybersecurity Profile. We're going to look at the rapid backup and transfer features within Enterprise Architect 15.1. The new Reusable Asset Service baselines. So you can now save baselines for your model and store them in Reusable Asset Service. So people can go away and work on their model independently from the team and then merge that baseline back in. We're going to talk about how you can engage with your global audience using tools like Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud Services in order to do some automatic translation. So today we're going to look at a number of features at a high level. I'm going to start off by looking at some of our new user interface features. So to begin the demonstration, we can examine how to pin models to the start page and to preview diagrams. Once again, registered users can download and install Enterprise Architect 15.1 today. So visualize your world. First of all, you can display the Enterprise Architect logo on the right edge of all of your diagrams. Using custom diagrams, you can now draw shapes with 5 to 10 edges. And there are a number of features to improve diagram appearance. So on screen, you can see a couple of polygons, and you can see you can create a 10-sided polygon. There's new features for navigating and managing triangles. And as you can see, you've got the Enterprise Architect logo on the right-hand side of the page. We also now have the ability to pin models. So what this allows you to do is to pin models to the start page. So you can right-click the models to add them to a separate list, and that list is then sorted alphabetically and available and visible both on the start page and in the file menu. So what this allows you to do, let's say you have 100 models, well, it allows you to find your most popular and the common models that you use on a daily basis instantly, and they'll be pinned to the start menu so you can get access to them very quickly. So you use the context menu on any recent files, and you can simply pin that connection and it will then appear on the start page. So really nice and easy. And you can see that the pinned items appear on the right off screen. So we're starting off with some interface features, and we'll move into some of the other features. Now this is one I really love, which is preview child diagrams. I can't tell you how much easier it makes it when you're navigating your Enterprise Architect model and you are trying to find specific diagrams, and rather than having to drill down 5 levels deep, you can just preview the child diagrams without ever having to lose focus. So what this allows you to do is easily preview child diagrams without losing focus by clicking on an eye icon. It allows you to preview and switch to child diagrams using 3 new keyboard accelerators. And there's a new eye-shaped icon which appears above composite diagrams and navigation elements, which allows you to instantly get a preview on screen. So here we've got system security, and I can see the use case previewed without ever having to lose focus. If you've got hundreds of navigation items on screen, it's really, really great to be able to just click the eye icon, instantly preview that diagram, and be able to move on. The other great feature which I find really useful is diagram layers. So diagram layers allow you to hide, show, and filter diagram content on demand. It allows you to assign elements to different layers on a per diagram basis, and it enables you to create layer visibility with a simple checkbox. So what it allows you to do is allows you to contrast as is and to be systems on a single diagram. If you're doing a presentation to management, you can slowly reveal parts of the diagram and build a great presentation with multi diagram layers on a single diagram. So it's really great for communicating. It's great for comparing as is and to be systems. And it's great for being able to tell a story and to be able to slowly present information on screen. So even though I'm talking about things at a high level, I will go through and demonstrate some of these things in a moment. So there's a new layers level, and you can select the layer and present those layers. There's also an option to freeze visible relationships. So visible connectors on a diagram can be frozen. So if I just go back again here, what it allows you to do is to freeze how a diagram looks, and it then gives you the ability to freeze and create a cleaner, finalized diagram. It's really good when you're working in collaborative teams, because if people go and add connectors after the diagram is frozen, while those connectors are still there, your frozen diagram doesn't get corrupted or disturbed in any way. So the diagram owner is basically telling the tool, so Enterprise Architect, not to update this diagram when connectors are added somewhere else in the model. So in order to access this, you go Start, Desktop, Design, Properties, Connectors, and Freeze Visible. This is a great way of being able to preserve connectors on a diagram. So you can see the one on the left of screen has been frozen, a new connectors added, but it doesn't show up on the secure access diagram. So this is once again great for presentations, and it's one that's really powerful for being able to present information on a diagram to management, and it still allows other team members to work on the models without disrupting or changing the way a particular diagram looks. The next thing I want to talk about is group-based perspectives, and I know I've spoken to customers from time to time that say that Enterprise Architect is a very powerful tool, and there's lots and lots of options, and sometimes people would like their BAs to just have a set of tools that allow them to do business analysis, their code engineers to just have tools around the visual execution analysis and code engineering and code editing, and some other tools to be just available for enterprise architects, and so on. So with group-based perspectives, what it allows you to do is it allows you to provide your team with the tools and technologies they need. You're able to lock down the available modeling tools for security groups. You can then share those perspectives between team members, and you can restrict any technology set to the required diagrams, elements, and connectors. So in other words, you can provide the tools and technologies that the BAs need, and when they log in based on their security credentials, that will impact what Enterprise Architect looks like. So once again, you have some tools and technologies, and you can specify what elements are available, what relationships, what link rules, and it allows you to change the way Enterprise Architect looks and feels. So what I've done is a high-level overview, and now I'm going to switch and show some product demonstrations. I'm just going to quickly have a look. So there's a question from Bashkirba that says, after this webinar, may I have a recording of the presentation deck here? So yes, the PowerPoint presentation deck and this video will be made available. So the video will be made available on the Sparx Systems website, and will also be available on youtube.com. Perhaps allow 48 hours for that to be published and made available. And there's another question about certification with this tool. So we have a large number of partners and trainers that can help get you up and running with Enterprise Architect. So what I'll do now is I'll jump into the product demonstration, and thanks for sending those questions in, and keep them coming. So we talked about pinning models and diagram preview, so I'll show how that works within Enterprise Architect 15.1. So I'm just going to double click the Enterprise Architect icon and open up EA. And whenever you open up EA, you get the start page. I've zoomed in here, and I can simply right click, select pin connection, and that item will automatically then be pinned, which provides easy access to important models. Now, in this particular example, I've just installed EA 15.1 and I've only got 2 or 3 recent models. However, it's quite common for people in commercial environments to have hundreds of different models and that you need access to, but there's only 2 or 3 on a daily basis that you're going to use quite a bit. So I'm going to open up this particular example, and my shuttle launch design, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a composite diagram so that this mind map then drills down and shows me all of my requirements. Now you can see the new eye icon is visible. If I click on that eye icon, it allows me to preview a child diagram instantly. So why this is useful is that in this particular mind map, I can now use these keyboard shortcuts, which is the backslash, the equals, and the backspace in order to preview the diagram. If I hit equals, it will allow me to drill down and open that diagram, and backspace allows me to enter. So it allows me to quickly navigate, preview, and drill down into diagrams quite quickly. It also works with navigation elements. So here I have my airport model, and I can very quickly look at strategic outcomes, use cases. I can see a flow chart, value items, a capability map, and a deployment diagram, so that I can see where I want to navigate to next. So once you've had this feature for a little while, it becomes very, very powerful, and I find it really, really great for being able to navigate large models, to be able to preview elements, and to be able to jump in and out of them as required. Next thing I want to do is demonstrate how diagram layers works, and diagram layers works in conjunction with filters. So on screen we have a series of system requirements. From the layout ribbon, you can see under the tools section, filters and layers is right up the top, and it brings up a new window which is being displayed on the right hand screen, which is called filters and layers. If I click on the new layers tab, this allows me to create a new layer. So there's a button here that says create a new layer. I can name that layer, so I can give it nice, meaningful, useful names, so I can compare as is or to be, or I can look at all weather requirements. And what you can do is then you can select the elements on screen, which are weather requirements. And once you've selected all of those, you can select the layer and you can add those elements. And it's easy as that. So it works very similar to layers in a tool like Photoshop, but it's working on all of your elements from a model level. You can create multiple layers, and you can give them all meaningful names. You can assign elements to each of those layers, and like I said, this feature allows you to tell a story. So on a single diagram, you can have an as-is and to-be system. And when you're presenting to management or enterprise architects or to business analysts, you can show and hide parts of the diagram, and you can tell a story as those items come on screen. Because it's part of filters and layers, you also have the ability to not only show and hide, but you can change the appearance of those things, and you can filter them using different techniques. So you can say filter by layer, and you can see now some elements are simply shaded. I find the new diagram layers feature is really powerful way of telling a story, of communicating information that's held within your models, and allowing you to break large complex diagrams up into small manageable components that people can understand, and you can present that data in a meaningful way. And of course, if you decide you want to change elements, you can select items, and you can add them and remove them to layers accordingly. So I'm now going to take a check escape velocity and remove that from that particular layer. And so it's very easy to make modifications and to make changes. So in the presentation so far, I've looked at pinning models, I've looked at diagram layers, and using filtering techniques, and we've looked at some of the user interface features around Enterprise Architect 15.1, and we've also looked at the new preview features, which allow you to preview diagrams within Enterprise Architect. There's also options on screen you can see to clear a current layer and to make changes. So I'll just have another quick look to see, can a single element be included in multiple layers? Yes, it can. And is this filter layer feature available on WebEA? That is a good question, and I'll need to find out, Gustavo. And from time to time, there might be some questions such as that, which I'll need to take back to the dev team. There's a question there. In other words, can an object be in more than one layer? I believe so. So the next thing we're going to look at is the custom diagram style. And so the very first thing that you need to do in order to enable the custom diagram style is to switch to custom styles. So simply select custom style from the properties of the diagram. You can see that it changes the appearance. The really good thing about custom styles, which was introduced in EA15, is that you can change colors, you can change shapes. So instead of just using rectangles, you can use triangles and polygons. There's new features and capabilities for how you can manipulate triangles, and with polygons, it now supports up to 10 sides. And you can make changes. So all of these features basically allow you to take a UML diagram and make it quite powerful. The new display mode allows you to display an Enterprise Architect watermark on your models. So you simply go to Preferences, select Behavior, and select Show Presentation Logo, and now that appears on every page. So for presentations, the logo is now visible across all diagrams. So those are some of the new UI features. The next thing I want to look at is group-based perspectives. Now, I've spoken to lots of customers that say it's really nice to be able to have these group-based perspectives. So if I go here, bring up perspectives window, at the moment we've got unrestricted modeling. So people can log in and access all the diagrams, and all the toolbars are accessible and they're all available. And all of the SysML features and all of the tools are also available. So out of the box, everybody has access to everything. You have full diagram access, and you can create whatever SysML diagram you like using all the SysML features, and it's quite comprehensive. However, what we would like to do is to be able to configure restrictions so that people, when they log in, can only access some tools. And many organizations find this useful. So you click on set restrictions, and then you can restrict what technologies are available. So you can specify so that, for example, a BA might only be able to access business analysis tools, and you can even set restrictions so you can say what types of SysML elements people can have access to, what types they can model, and what they can use. So you can select the relevant element types, and you can do a quick search. So you can add activities, and you can be very, very specific. Now, why is this useful to be able to restrict what people can access to? Well, the minute someone logs in, their interface and the tools that they have available will be restricted to their specific task. Now, some people like this for security reasons because they don't want certain individuals in their team to be able to use or add certain technologies to a diagram. And other people find it useful because it allows you to have a limited subset, which makes learning your task for a given role much simpler. And all of this is based on creating perspective for someone's, as they log in, different tools will become available, and it makes it very, very flexible for how you can configure and manage Enterprise Architect. So you can see in the example, I've been able to modify our SysML technology. Now this also leads us to perspective security. So what we can do is we can apply this now to a particular group of individuals. So you can see that I've got groups set up for BAs, for administrators, and much more. And you can now enable this new perspective. You can disable any restricted perspective sets. So we don't want them doing UX design, and we don't want them creating software requirements. We just want them working on SysML. So you can restrict the tools, you can restrict the ribbons, and it's all based on your group. So in other words, when you log in, you are assigned to a group. So it gives you a great deal of control and flexibility over how Enterprise Architect is presented, what tools are made available, based on a person's security status within the team, based on their role-based security, and that can then get implemented. So then as a user, so let's log in to the restricted group. So at the moment I'm an administrator, but I'm going to log in, and instead of logging in, I'm just going to log in as a particular user. And now you can see, rather than having all of the perspectives available, I just have the SysML perspective. You'll notice that the ribbon set has also been restricted, and the number of options on the ribbons have been restricted, making EA very, very simple to use because there's only a very limited number of tools. And I have spoken to many managers in the past that say this will be fantastic because they just want some staff to do 5 or 6 tasks in EA and the same tasks over and over again, and they want EA to be as simple and easy to use as possible. And you can do it, and you can limit it and make it based on group-based security, which is really quite powerful. So this allows people, when they log in, to have access to particular tools, techniques, and features. So I've talked about some of the tools, the user interface. We've looked at diagram layers. We've looked at group-based perspectives. Now, some of the other things that I mentioned in the description for this webinar was a model-based business vocabulary, often called a glossary, and you might hear me use the terms interchangeably, but we've always had a glossary in Enterprise Architect, but Now you can create a model-based glossary. So you can model your glossary terms and have them within Enterprise Architect. So this is quite powerful because this new glossary template allows you to build a model-based business vocabulary. Now, if you have a large team, you might have a specific term, and that term gets used in the organization, but it might have a number of different meanings. And what's great is that you can model those different meanings. And so then when you put your mouse over, you get a tooltip and it will say what those different meanings are. You can create relationships and structures between your different business terms. And of course, because they're modeled and they're model elements, you can link those glossary terms to much broader elements within your overall model. You also have the ability to do things such as post discussions, apply security, and access mouse over tips for the tooltips for those glossary terms. You can easily share your business vocabulary. So you can take a business vocabulary from one business unit and share it with another business unit if you're working on a collaborative project together. You can change, nest, and categorize elements very easily. So on screen, you can see we had some glossary categories. So I might just jump back a little bit. So you can change, nest, categorize, group, and remove terms with these. And one thing that you can do is you can create categories as shown on screen. So the first category provides a number of terms which are plain and clear, such as advantage, agenda, benefit, calculate, develop. And these all might be used in a business context, and they might have very specific definitions, and you need to have plain and clear definitions so everybody within the organization understands what is meant when these words are used. One of the problems with requirements management is often there are vague words which cause difficulties in interpreting and managing requirements. So sometimes a glossary can be used to specify terms and get rid of ambiguity and vagueness within your software specifications. And some examples, words like bad and could and fairly and maybe. All of these things really have the ability to completely destroy good software system requirements because they're too vague. So by putting them in the glossary and defining them, it's really good because whenever somebody uses one of those words, you get a tooltip and you go, oh, I'm not supposed to use these vague words because it undermines the quality of my requirements. And we've got a third category here for aviation. But some businesses will have scientific terms or business terms or finance terms or legal terms that need to be modeled within Enterprise Architect so everybody understands what the terms are and how they work. And then what you can do is you can take those entries and you can define those elements and you can model them within Enterprise Architect. So here we have some examples. We have the electromagnetic spectrum, radio waves and microwaves, and you can see that there is a connection between radio waves and microwaves, that they are all part of the electromagnetic spectrum. So this is a great example of where you can take scientific terminology, you can model it in Enterprise Architect and provide semantic structure by creating relationships. Not only can you create semantic relationships with the information presented on screen, but you can also link that to other model elements, which gives you a great deal of flexibility. Enterprise Architect 15.1 also includes new cybersecurity profiles. So this allows you to identify and mitigate potential threats, allows you to perform cybersecurity threat evaluation based on your trust diagram, and allows you to build, use built-in patterns and checklists to form an action plan. with respect to cybersecurity. So Enterprise Architect 15.1 provides this new cybersecurity capability, and you can build that. Enterprise Architect 15.1 now supports native transfer, and it really provides you with the ability to undertake fast model transfer. So full transfer, including the complete model and all reference data. It allows you to transfer to and from cloud-hosted models, and it also supports large models where a single XML export would simply be impractical. Now, I know I'm constantly copying models, and the new transfer is just lightning fast and really, really powerful. So you can see from the configure menu, you can simply go transfer and do a native XML, and you can export a complete project to a single XML file. It's really, really quick. It picks up all of the reference data and all of the model elements. So it's really great for being able to move, back up, and transfer your files rapidly and quickly within Enterprise Architect 15.1. And you can see it specifies all the elements on screen. Now, another new feature which people are extremely excited about, and this is particularly important to large organizations that are spread geographically, or in organizations where there are multiple languages being used within the one company. We have many Canadian customers that many of their model elements will be in English and French, and we have many European customers where much of the documentation needs to be in French, English, and German. And so it's very common for our customers to be able to want to translate reports and documentations and notes and minutes into multiple different languages. So within Enterprise Architect 15.1, we can leverage the power of online services such as Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud in order to do that translation on the fly. So there's support for translation of notes, names, alias, and document generation. And this is all cloud-based. So this is something that in a future webinar, I'll do a deep dive, and I'll show you how to configure it, how to set it up, and how to model it. But essentially, you can see you bring up the manage project options, you select your translator, you click the checkbox to enable it, you set a registration tag and a registration key, which then uses Microsoft services or Google Cloud services. Obviously, this will cost based on whatever the cloud service provider charges. However, what's really great is that once you've done it, you can auto-translate notes and reports and documents, which gives you an enormous amount of flexibility, especially if your organization routinely requires text in different languages. So here, the example on screen, we had English version, and you have your French translation automatically being created. And you can see the checkboxes for auto translate, and you can verify that translation. And you'll note that in the properties tag, you have the element, and then you have a French translation name for that element as well. So all of this happens out the box, and it's really quite a powerful new tool and feature. So you have the ability to translate, and in order to generate information. So what I want to do now is I'm going to demonstrate some of the things that I've been talking about. So let's have a look, and under Glossary you can see that there are now a number of different model patterns that allow you to quickly and easily create a model glossary template. So there's a structured glossary, model, definition. You can create acronyms. I'm just going to create a nice, simple, structured model glossary example. So you can see you now have some acronyms. You've got things for BPMN, UML, XMI, XML. You have some business language and some other content. So I'm going to create a new category called scientific, and I'm going to drill down into scientific, and I'm going to create a glossary entry. Now it's really simple. You drag it from the toolbox, you give it a name using the properties dialog. So I'm going to call it electromagnetic spectrum. In the notes field, I'm going to automatically give that a definition. And now I'm going to create a new entry. And once again, using the properties field, radio waves are part of the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, you'll note that when I start typing in the notes field, electromagnetic spectrum is automatically underlined. So if I place my mouse over that, it will provide a tooltip and give that definition. So the minute that you model it and you create it, you can access those terms. By creating connectors between some of these elements, like I said, it provides semantic structure, and you can nest elements, and you can create a great deal of depth of information, connections, relationships within your glossary terms, which is fantastic when you're creating a business vocabulary, and it gives you a great deal of power. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new requirement saying how do we manage radio waves for our flight operations. And I'll start typing, and I say flight controls must manage all radio waves. And you can see the minute I type it, it becomes underlined, so it now picks up that glossary term. A lot of my other elements are all there and visible, and if I put my mouse over it, you can see it says scientific, part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and gives you a full definition. So not only does it say the definition of the word, but it tells me what category it comes from. Now, if you have multiple departments and you have different definitions for different departments, those different definitions will be displayed on screen. So this also helps to reduce ambiguity with respect to your glossary terms. So the next thing I'm going to have a look at is setting up baselines in our Reusable Asset Service. Now, Enterprise Architect's always been able to create baselines and you save them with the model, but this goes one step further and allows you to set up your baselines and configure it with a Reusable Asset Service. So on screen, you can see what we're doing is we're going to configure the link to the Reusable Asset Service. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the checkbox to say store the package baselines in the RAS. And I'm going to select my storage and click save. So now whenever I create a baseline within my Enterprise Architect model, it's going to be saved here in a Reusable Asset Service. And this is quite powerful because it allows me to refer to that, and that can be stored in a cloud using your Reusable Asset Service, and it gives you a number of different features. So we have a business process here for our car repair process. People that have seen my webinars before might know that this is a familiar topic that I've used before. I'm going to create a baseline 1.0, and I can do the usual things that I can view the baseline in the diagram, and this baseline is being stored in our Reusable Asset Server. So now I'm going to go and make a change to this particular diagram. I'm going to create a new activity. I'm going to link repair car to that activity. I'm going to remove the old activity and I'm going to rename it. So now we can view the diagram change, and if I compare to the baseline, I can show the differences, and it will now show me accept payment is red because we got rid of it, and bill payment has been added, and you can see baseline only, model only. So you can view the model change and compare it. Now, if I say manage baselines, I can say compare, and we can look at the comparison, and we can compare the new element. Now, what's really useful about this is it also allows you to access it via the browser. So I can go to the browser and you can see that it shows all my various baselines, and we can also view any dependent packages. So I can see any dependencies, so any changes to this. I can quickly right-click, use Context Manager, see those items in the browser, and all of this baseline is being stored in the Reusable Asset Server. So this allows you to then, send this baseline off to customers to share, to communicate, to have discussions around this, and it has all the benefits of the Reusable Asset Service. So you can have two models connected at the same time, and be both looking at the same Reusable Asset Service and making comparisons. So it really is quite powerful and gives you a great deal of flexibility. So we have our different things, and once again we have our ability to to merge those, and you can add reviewers' comments. So you can see the administrator is writing a comment. Baseline covers the updates to the manage inventory requirement. So that gives you a number of tools that were previously not available within the Reusable Asset Service. Next thing I want to demonstrate is the translation feature, which I talked about earlier. So how it works is that you can quickly switch between multiple languages. So you've got the description, and you can switch between French and German and Korean and Vietnamese as shown on screen. You simply go to translate, you set your registration tag, your key, you select your key terms, and setting reserved words. You can specify reserved words such as Enterprise Architect in the glossary, which we talked about previously. And you can see some French terms, some Danish terms, and of course, Enterprise Architect has been translated into French and German and into Danish and a number of other languages, but you can specify key terms that might be particular to your organization, or any key terms. So you can set by element, either in a manual or automatic way, so you can force translate or auto translate, and you can see on screen that we are translating in real time into Vietnamese. So we can add a new class and talk about how to model and manage complex information. That's been written in English, and here in the notes under translation, I can automatically translate that into Korean and Vietnamese and whatever target languages I have specified. So here we have what is Enterprise Architect, introduction, what differentiates EA from other tools. The notes field on the right-hand side, you can see has translation there, which specifies in Dutch. We're going to go to French now. We're going to generate out our documentation in French. And here's our report, which we happen to be using the reviewer's guide, which has now been automatically translated into French. And the notes on the right-hand side were also in Dutch. So setting name and alias topics. So you have an English name, and you can see that you can have a French and a Spanish, Danish, Dutch, and Japanese definition for all of those terms. And you can also have multiple different languages. So in the webinar today, we've talked about how Enterprise Architect 15.1 provides no boundaries. It allows you to engage your global audience and to do automatic translations using Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure into French, German, Italian, and multiple different languages. We've looked at how to fine-tune your modeling language and look at how to set up different perspectives based on your security group. We've looked at being able to unleash your team using model baselines and the Reusable Assets Service, and we've shown how that's worked. We've developed a model-based business vocabulary, and I created some scientific terms and showed how to build those. I haven't really looked at some of the invite the world into your model, but I will be doing a follow-up on some of that. I showed you how to pin model elements, how to create new diagram layers, how to freeze visible relationships, how to preview child diagrams, some of the new visual techniques. The DMN enhancements I haven't gone into a great deal. We've looked at a number of features, and I haven't really looked at the visual execution analyzer, but I think I have been able to cover a fairly diverse range of topics in this hour. So what I'd like to do now is I'd just like to spend a little bit of time on some questions, and there's a lot of them that have come in. So a number of people have asked the usual questions about will this be made available? So I'll just reiterate that the video will be available on the Sparx Systems website, and I'll show you how to get to that. So from the website, you can go up here to resources, and you can go to the webinars library, and all of the webinars are listed here. And we also have the Sparx YouTube site. And if I say YouTube, so Sparx Systems YouTube site is the first one on the list, and so we have hundreds of videos available there. So this webinar will be available, and the slide deck will also be made available. And a lot of the 15.1 features build on Enterprise Architect 15. And you can see that introducing Enterprise Architect 15 Part 1 and 2 are listed here under the webinars. So you can go back and review that information. So I'll try and work through some of the questions. There's another question here saying, is Enterprise Architect publicly available? So yes, it was released this week. So you can see the current version is 15.1, and it is available immediately to registered users. So that's good. It says, does security apply for restrict a whole package, even for visualization? So what I demonstrated today was that based on your group security settings, so when you log in, you're assigned to a group, then you can specify for that group what tools they can access, what perspectives they can access, what technologies they can access, and being able to restrict what ribbons are available and what aspects are available. So this allows you to restrict perspectives, and all of that entails, so the tools, techniques, and ribbon elements, and the tools and technologies themselves to restrict and control what's available based on a person's login. So the way EA looks for all of your BAs might look different to the way Enterprise Architect looks for the systems engineers, the software developers, and the enterprise architects, and they'll all have different tools made available to them if you decide to restrict your perspectives and your tools and your techniques based on some of those features. It's a question from Jeremy. Is there a way to automatically port my existing glossary entries to new vocab elements? So that is something that I'll definitely take back to the dev team. But once you have created a new model-based glossary, it makes it really easy because you can then just use the new fast transfer feature, and you can take that glossary and move it to other projects instantly. So it makes it really easy. But yes, I'll need to find out about integrating some of the old elements. I know that you used to be able to export the glossary, so the old glossary as a XMI elements, but I will take that question back to the dev team. Yeah, and Jasmine said, how can I access previous webinar material? So once again, from sparxsystems.com, resources, webinar library, and all of those will be available. Gillian said, a lot of new features. Well done, Sparx. So thank you. There's another question about other webinars coming up. What I wanted to do today is give a high-level overview of features. So in less than an hour, I've shown you, baselines and RAS, translation, diagram layers, previewing elements. But there were some elements that were not covered that will be in future videos. For example, I didn't even touch on the visual execution analyzer features. I didn't really show a great example of how the cybersecurity profile could be used. I didn't really talk about the new DMN features. There's support for things like SysML features that I didn't discuss. And there's some items around being able to invite the world into your model, where you can tightly integrate model information that I also didn't cover. That we'll look at this in some future webinars. So there's a lot to get through, but what I'm hoping is that people will walk away from the webinar and say, oh, I can see there's lots of new information in Enterprise Architect 15.1 that I'd like to get on top of. And it's great to point out that it's available for registered users today. So if you have a current subscription for Enterprise Architect, you can download Enterprise Architect 15.1, start using it today, and start testing out some of these features. Daniel said, where can I get an accent like that? Love your accent. I can't help you with that one. This Ocker accent comes from many years in Australia, and sometimes when I travel the world, it's very hard to hide this accent, and it really does stand out. I can't help you get one though. It takes years to develop. Look, what I might do now is I'll wrap up. I'd like to thank everyone for your time today. It's been great to show you some of the new features within Enterprise Architect 15.1. It's been great to get so many questions, and there's probably a few that we won't get to today, or some that I might need to talk to the dev team, but I'll happily try to get answers for some of those and get those published with the webinar on the site. That might take a little while, but I'll try and get the video up on YouTube as soon as possible. Thanks for showing your support and for coming along to hear about Enterprise Architect 15.1. There will be a number of webinars coming up in the following weeks and months covering a number of various topics. Look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for your time, and please download Enterprise Architect 15.1. Give it a try. Within a few minutes, you'll be able to, create a glossary using the templates. You'll be able to create diagram layers and start using some of these new features in your projects, and it should make things much easier and open up a world of new possibilities. Thanks very much. Have a great day, and that's it from me.